China is reportedly seeking a region-wide deal with 10 Pacific Island nations, a move that has already raised the ire of at least one of the countries on Beijing's radar. Foreign Minister Wang Yi will host a meeting in Fiji next week. He will reportedly offer a deal covering policing, security, and data communications. He will also propose a China-Pacific Islands free trade area and support for action on climate change and health. Wang Yi lands in Solomon Islands' capital, Honiara, tomorrow, kicking off a tour of 8 nations that China has diplomatic ties with. And they include Kiribati, Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, and East Timor. But Beijing has received pushback on its reported deal from at least one of the Pacific Islands. Federated States of Micronesia President David Paniolo says his nation would argue that the predetermined joint communique be rejected. He says that it would tie the Pacific Islands to China too tightly. Mr. Paniolo fears it could spark a new Cold War between China and the West, a position that's rejected by Beijing.
中国长期坚持向岛国提供不附加任何政治条件的经济技术援助，实施了100多个援助项目，提供了200多批次的物资援助，为岛国培养各领域人才约1万人次。
Lo Minmin joins us live now. Minmin, why are some of these Pacific Island countries pushing back on the deal?
Well, the pushback is coming from the perception that China's intention with this deal is to control the region and threaten regional stability. That's according to the president of the Federated States of Micronesia. Now, recall that China has recently signed a security pact with the Solomon Islands, which face severe pushback from Australia, New Zealand, as well as Japan and the United States. The fear is that China could set up military bases in the islands just thousands of kilometers away from Australia. Now, China and the Solomon Islands have, of course, denied that. But now this new deal that covers 10 Pacific Island nation states could potentially increase China's footprint in the region significantly. And understandably, some of these small nation states are worried about being caught in a geopolitical rivalry between the United States and China, especially if tensions flare up in Taiwan. Now, this deal, because it doesn't just involve exchanges in policing and security, it also involves a free trade agreement and exchanges in data security, data network and cybersecurity. So there are worries that China's control over these sensitive telecommunications network, as well as their access to the maritime environment and its resources, could threaten the sovereignty of these small nations and could also increase the likelihood of China clashing with their larger neighbors like Australia and New Zealand.
How is China responding to, statements that the deal would trigger a new Cold War?
The Foreign Ministry spokesperson said today that he totally disagrees with the statement and that the purpose of Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to the region is to deepen friendly relations and that it is conducive to promote peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. And the spokesperson then goes on to talk about how China and the Pacific Island nations have had a long history of friendly exchanges with cooperation in over 20 areas, including trade and investment, education, tourism, and healthcare, and that China has also offered them economic assistance without any political strings attached. But what's unsaid, though, at the press briefing is that this is clearly China's way of deepening engagement in the region, especially coming on the back of the Quad meeting that happened yesterday. We saw the U.S. drawing closer to its friends in the Asia-Pacific, and President Joe Biden's Indo-Pacific strategy specifically focuses on boosting resilience in the South Pacific Island nations. And we know Palau, for example, has offered to host a U.S. military bases in its territory. So China really doesn't want these small nations to be pulled too closely into the U.S. orbit.
Many thanks for those updates. Lo Minmin in Shanghai.